Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the New Earth Leadership Summit, where spiritual entrepreneurs like you learn how to stand in their personal power so they can become the leaders of New Earth. And with me today, I have 8 times international best-selling publisher and USA Today bestselling author Brigid Holder of the Art of Grace Publishing House. And Brigid loves to support the pushing of the boundaries of publishing, and her literary prose spotlights empowerment, truth-telling, and women breaking barriers, which is so exciting. Brigid, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here as part of the New Earth Summit, Therese.
Absolutely. So, of course, I have to ask, I would love to know how this all started for you. I mean, did you always dream of being a publisher, or was there a divine path that led you down this mission?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a divine intervention, I call it. So I had been searching for many years of what that one thing was that lit me up, that, you know, gave you those heart expansive moments and really made you want to jump out of bed to do things during the day. And for years it eluded me. You know, I was very good at business. I've led companies from 400 clients to over 4,000 clients. I was a general manager of a national organisation here in Australia that had 400 clients when I walked in and over 4,000 when I walked out.
Wow.
I've worked for a shipping company as 2IC and managed over $500 million in sales and services with them. And, you know, that was easy. I then went on to have children and thought it was the hardest job in the world. I couldn't wait to get back to an office where I managed 15 women in the office and 400 in the field. And it was like, what have I done? You know, this was the biggest mistake of my life, and found myself completely lost. So I kept on searching for this elusive thing that lit me up whilst doing business. And in the meantime, my husband and I started a business, and I decided to step in that fully a few years ago, and, you know, turned the sales from 100,000 to over 1 million within 8 months. And it's something that I see as a natural gift to me, but it doesn't light me up. And, you know, money's not everything. And it was, I decided to get an online coach, and working with her, I went to her and I said, I love you. I don't know what it is about you, but, you know, I love your energy and I love how you present yourself, and I'm a businesswoman and I want to find something that lights me up. And she didn't have an offering of this sort at all. She was like, you know, how to make 7 sales in 7 days. And there was another thing that she had. And I was like, I don't want those things. I just want to work with you. And I don't know what it is or why I'm working with you, but I want to work with you. And at the time I was in a multi-level marketing company. Now, I love multi-level marketing. I think it's a brilliant concept and a lot of people get a lot from that. Again, I joined 2 of those. In one, I went straight to the second highest rank you can get within 3 months. You know, it was easy for me, but not enjoyable. You know, it wasn't, definitely led me on this self-discovery path. And I was in the second one when I met my coach online, and still use their products. But it is something that I didn't actually plan on doing. I just fell into it. So my coach said, lots of people keep on asking, or keep on telling me they want to write a book. So I'm going to publish a multi-author book. Who's in? And I went, yeah, I'll do it. Not knowing what I was getting myself into, not knowing that when you write and publish your stories, it actually is very cathartic for you as the writer. Not knowing that I was going to deal with something I thought I'd already dealt with. You know, all these things came up for me. And yeah, this was in 2019. And then she went on to publish a few more books. And I was like, if I had the impact I had with one book, because when the book came out, I got messages from over 130 women saying, thank you for sharing your story. I can't believe I'm not the only one. I spoke about not liking motherhood and, you know, lying about the whole process, and probably had postnatal depression for 10 years and hiding that from everybody and putting on this brave face and pretending to be this great mum. And these messages made me realize that I could make an impact on people's lives through storytelling. But I wanted to do it on a grander scale than just my stories. So then I was saying to my then business coach, okay, so how do you publish books? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I went into a second book with her and asked her all these questions. And she turned around and she said, you know what, Brigid, I'm going to run a publishing course. I'm going to teach you everything I know. Do you want to join that? And I went, yes, I do. So I went on and did that and published my first book in 2020 and have done now 8. And on the 31st of May, the 9th one drops. And in June, there's 2 more solo authors dropping.
Oh
and
my
I think this year
gosh.
I'll probably publish 15 books under the Art of Grace Publishing House, and sharing women's stories. And I share my stories still in other people's books. I've done 14 now.
Wait, I have to time out. Since 2019, you've done 14? My God.
Yeah.
Okay, we just have to acknowledge for a moment that this is clearly a superpower you hold. So, wow.
It's a beautiful thing though to share your stories through a multi-author book, because you get to read other people's stories as well, and you resonate with something in most people's stories. There's always a link, and it really shows and proves that divine law that we are all one, because you have this connection to people that you've never met and would never come across if you didn't join this book together. And, you know, some of the women in the first book I was ever in, I can't wait to travel to go and visit some of them. And, you know, they've become friends of mine, and I refer people to them because of the work they do. And had I not been in that book, I would never have come across them. And, you know, it's not only a cathartic thing for you as the writer, but the readers get so much out of it too. I did a book this year, which was, last year, that was a passion project. And it's called Hear Her Roar. And it's women who experience domestic abuse. And I grew up in a domestic abuse relationship. My parents had a domestic abuse relationship. And the impact that's had on my life, I thought I had dealt with. You know, I'd had counselling and been to psychologists and joined a group even. And I thought I'd dealt with all that. And when I wrote about it, it was like this whole other level of help for me. And when you put those stories together, women who are stuck in those situations, if they can see one of those stories, it might just help them to leave that one time sooner. It might help them to not end up a statistic. And, you know, having that impact in the world is just, I just can't explain the feeling. And as the original question, was it planned? No. Was it divine? Yes. It was certainly a path that I was meant to take. And, you know, I could do publish books till the cows come home. As long as I do have a niche though, it's women's stories to empower other women. I don't want to publish novels. There's other people that can do that. And really does light me up.
I can tell. And I mean, just how much comes out of you. I mean, it's clear you've got this prolific power in you that when you are inspired, you know, or if you can see the path forward, like you go all in. That's what you're showing me. And that's incredible. It's beautiful. And just out of curiosity, because you're so prolific and you've produced so much so quickly, does it affect your energy? Or does it feed your energy? What does it do for you?
Yeah, it feeds my energy. You know that I've been quite ill over the past few weeks, and what has happened in the current book is there's women in there who've stepped up to leadership because I have not been present. And that just lights me up. It's like, you know, I can't do it. And I haven't had to ask. It's just the women that seem to call in and I surround myself with in these books it just happens. And it's like this momentum picks up, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. And yeah, it feeds me. And to read their stories is like, you know, I feel honored that they want to share them through my books. And when I get to do it, I feel honored to be able to share them through other publishers' books, because, you know, sharing your stories really does allow other people to change their reality, and they can see that it's possible because somebody else has done it. And I'm nobody special, you know, like I'm from a small town. I grew up in a small town, went to a public high school for the last 2 years of my schooling. And never went to university. I don't have, I have an accounting diploma. It's, don't have formal qualifications. And this is just, it makes me want to jump out of bed in the morning when I know I've got things to do on the publishing company. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I'm going to ask you a question then. Before you wrote your first story, would you have ever identified as a writer to someone? So if I had met you before you wrote your first story, would you say, oh, I write and da, da, da?
No way.
No way.
No
Okay.
way. No way. And you know what's really funny is that is the most common objection I get when I invite people. When I see somebody's story on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn on social media, and I think, oh my gosh, that person's story would be perfect for this book that I have a title. And often the most common reply is, oh, but I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I couldn't do that. And a lot of the people who join the books actually go through a period where they go, I feel like an imposter. I shouldn't be here on this panel of people. This isn't the right place for me. So yeah, that is very common. And no, I wouldn't have identified myself as a writer. And, sometimes now I still think, am I really?
I mean, let's see. Let me just read that bio one more time. International best-selling publisher and best-selling author for USA Today. I think that you can easily qualify to call yourself a writer now.
Well, it's actually what I don't put in the bio, because it gets a bit confusing, is so 14 times I've gone to bestseller on Amazon.
Wow.
In multi-author books. And, people say, is that really bestseller? And it's hard to get Amazon bestseller. It's not easy. Like,
right.
It's a whole process. So, and it's all numbers. And, there's not a panel of people sitting there going, is this a good book or not a good book? It's numbers and reviews. The more reviews you get, and good reviews. If you get bad reviews, obviously it's not going to help you get bestseller.
Right.
And number of books that you sell is, it comes down to that with Amazon. So it's definitely important to acknowledge that for people who do contribute to those sorts of books. Sorry,
oh, that's okay. Life happens and we're still going. So I love it. So I have a few questions. I have a lot of questions for you, but I want to go back to the fact that you didn't identify as a writer. I feel like there's a key here for someone who's watching this. And yet you wrote and allowed your writing to be published, which then led you to also publishing. How did you overcome the self-limiting belief? Because like you said, you reach out to a lot of people who you're like, that's a good story, I could publish that. And they're like, oh, no, self-limiting belief. I'm not a writer, therefore I can't participate. So I know that everybody's going to come at this differently, but how did you overcome that self-limiting belief?
So I see, because of my self-limiting belief of I'm not a good mother, I've done a lot of work around limiting beliefs, and it's a choice for me. So I can choose to believe that thought, or I can choose to believe another thought. And then, I chose to believe the other thought, that, my story is worth telling and people will want to hear it.
I love that you said that, because one of the things I talk about in my own work when I'm coaching with people, or I'm talking to the public just about the energy of right now, is that our choices, we're really here for making choices. It's how we advance and evolve spiritually, is by making choices. So I absolutely love that your way of overcoming a self-limiting belief is to simply make a choice about it. Well, it's like, I could believe that. What's the consequence of that? I obviously limit myself. Or I could make a new choice here. So I love that it's beautiful in its simplicity, and of course it's potent in its power, which makes it, it's one of those moments where whenever you come up against these, you're like, oh, this is the moment.
Yeah, there's still I often do, there's a book that I did recently called Sacred Redesign that I contributed to with Armour Publishing, and I almost didn't join that book because I thought, oh, I'm not worthy to sit with these people. These people are another level above me.
Let's talk about that. Oh, this is
they're more divine than I am. You know, all these thoughts came into my mind and I almost didn't do it because of limiting beliefs coming up. So, you know, I face it all the time too. It's not just because, you know, I've already done 13 books that I can do 14. It's who's going to be at that table. And, yeah, you know, those thoughts come to me as to, and I know that I am, but still that subconscious of you're not good enough does raise its head occasionally. And I still have to remind myself to make the choice to go the path that is more challenging.
I love that you bring this up. I feel like it naturally leads into talking about leadership, because all the time, as we open ourselves up to something, right, the next level appears. And I love that you talked about, like, who am I to sit at this table? That's something every time I have expanded outside my personal comfort zone or asked myself to grow into the next version of myself, even doing this summit, I've been able to contact amazing people like you. And there's a part of me that's like, who am I? Who am I to show up like this? But I think that's so important, because it's the universe aligns and creates these opportunities when especially when we're on our own divine path, like you're talking about here, that we're going to get these opportunities. And I feel like this is a component of leadership. So can you speak into that?
I think that, excuse me, I think that when something is challenging for someone, the opportunity that lies on the other side of the challenge is unknown.
Yeah.
And change is often scary for a lot of people, even if you don't consciously think it's scary. And I think if you expand the opportunities by facing challenges that come up, and it might just be, who am I to sit at this table? Or who am I to run this summit? It's, you know, it could be as simple as, who am I to go to the school P&F and be on the school's board? It doesn't have to be about business. It could be something in your personal life that is a challenge. The opportunity that lies on the other side of that, you don't know of until you actually step through the challenge. And then you look back at the challenge and you go, that actually wasn't as hard as I made out it was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time.
Right. Because it's beautiful. I just did on my YouTube channel, I just did an episode about that, about outside your comfort zone. You're guaranteed to meet your fear. You're going to meet fear you haven't even assessed in yourself yet, because you were inside the comfort zone. You simply couldn't see it. And so by going outside of it, you're going to meet it, but it's a transformational moment. It's the willingness to look at it that literally transforms it. So I love what you said. You were saying that that opportunities that, well, I wrote it
opportunities come out of the challenges that you face.
That's yes, thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. So I love that you said that, because you can almost see that the fear is sort of this guardian or gatekeeper to this beautiful opportunity that's just on the other side of it. And you said that so eloquently. So obviously the writer in the group. I'm like,
I don't know where this stuff comes from, Therese.
Divinely inspired. I love it. So I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I sense that this might have maybe even a bigger application than any of us realize. I mean, you've realized it, but you had said that writing your story, your personal story, is a form of catharsis in itself, and so healing. So is that something you would recommend to everyone, even if they never intend to publish it? Is that an exercise?
Oh, I actually think it's the publishing that does the next level. And because, you know, I've journaled about my childhood as part of one of the processes I took with a psychologist. And this was just another level. It was like, you know, it was like, other people are going to read this. And I was concerned about what my mum would think, but I spoke to her beforehand. And even when I wrote the motherhood story, you know, it was like, oh, how much are people going to judge me for not liking motherhood. Like, I've been blessed with 2 healthy children, and other people have so many challenges around parenting. You know, all that goes on in your mind, but it's this level of peace you come to with whatever the challenge is that you are writing about and that you've gone through. That, and I often get people say to me, "You were right. This is, you know, it's a whole nother level. I thought I dealt with all that stuff." And often I will join a book and say, "I'm going to write about XYZ." And when I sit down and do my intuitive storytelling process, I write about ABC instead. So it's
Right.
and I can never plan that. And it's, you know, I always say that my intuition leads how I write, and it's a beautiful process to go through to actually get to this. It's almost like another level of clearing. So there's lots of ways to clear trauma from your body and to clear trauma from your subconscious, and writing and publishing that writing, it's another level. Like, I never knew existed until I wrote my first piece.
That's so incredible. And I can understand that would be powerful, I'm sure. So as a publisher and who does many multi-author books, how often are you dealing with your authors stressing out right before you hit publish then? Is that something that happens? Are
Every
people like,
single
I regret
time.
everything?
Yeah. And I even had one woman want to pull her story from the book the day before we launched.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
sorry, honey. Can't do it. But, you know, and she's so grateful that it's in the book.
Yes, I'm sure, because ultimately, like you said, the end result is catharsis. There is absolute healing. It's like, I would imagine that it must be like in some ways being set free.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So that actually goes really beautiful into talking about this new earth energy. And so one of the things I love talking about when we get to this, so everyone's got a different sort of idea of what this is, but if we all agree that it's another level of consciousness, it is a higher vibrational way of being. Let's talk about what would you say an industry like publishing and books, what would it be producing at that next level of consciousness?
So the books create this ripple effect that you can never know how far that ripple goes. So you imagine a droplet of water dropping into a pond that is completely still, and you watch the ripple effect, and it goes right to the edges of the pond. It just, you know, it reaches every single crevice. That's what books do. And multi-author books in particular have this effect to impact more lives, because there's, you know, 15 to 25 to 30, some people put 50 people in multi-author books. They have this effect. It's compounded because there's all of those people dropping that droplet of water into the world, and, you know, just their story, ripple effect. And you don't know how far that's going to go, because you may impact one woman who's going to impact their family and their children, and then their children are going to impact their friends, and their husband's going to act differently because it's going to impact his circle of friends. So you just don't know where that ripple effect ends. And I think that that's the part that I really got excited about when I wrote my first ever story, and those over 130 women contacted me saying thank you. And I didn't do it thinking that I was going to make money off the back of the book. Although I did get clients because of sharing my story, that wasn't my intention going into it. It was just because my business coach was doing a book, and I thought, how cool would it be to say I'm a published author? That's the whole intention I went in there for. And and come out the other side and become a publisher myself is just like, it's incredible. So that ripple effect on me is still going. So it's like, it's exponentially affecting the new earth, because I call in women who are spiritual, and if they're not, they're tipping their toes in the water, and they get surrounded by all these women who are, and they see that it's like me. When I was first dabbling in my own spirituality, I thought that, you know, these were tie-dye wearing, you know, jewelry dripping off them, cross-legged sitting on the floor doing mantras every 2 hours. And it's just, I had this preconceived idea of all these hippies gathering together, and that was what being spiritual was. And meditation was part of that. And to see that there's normal business women like me involved in spirituality is, you know, eye-opening for a lot of people, and it was for me. And I think that that's something that comes with the books, and it's, you know, those people who are dipping their toes in the water really get to see that these are just normal everyday people. It's not, you know, they have normal lives and families, and, you know, it's a beautiful way to live in that space, and to live from that, to live from here is what I call it, to live from your heart space rather than your head space all the time. And it's a great way to connect more to your heart space through writing in a book. And whether it be a whole solo book or a multi-author book, it's the same, and just takes it to another level when you do your own solo book.
It sounds like multi-author books really do help break down maybe preconceptions of ideas that we have. Like you were saying, you know, when you first published about not liking motherhood, and you had this preconception that that's made you wrong. And of course, being able to express that, and then seeing that other people understood your own journey, and that, you know, helped open your own awareness, but also the part being able to participate in other books where, again, like the preconceptions of like being super spiritual means, you know, you're a flower child or something like that. And that really helps to, yeah, break open preconception just about any experience. So is that what people are generally experiencing around you while they participate in these books? Is it's really opening their
So I've had I've done a series called Intuitive, and there's been women who've joined that book and they go, oh, I'm not spiritual enough. Like, how do you know?
How do you quantify that?
Yeah. I shouldn't laugh, because, you know, I probably said that at one point, and it's a great, they are really good books for people who are, you know, just starting to explore a different way of being. And because there's so many stories at so many different levels, you know, there's women who are completely living in this spiritual 5D land, and then there's women who, like me, are, you still live in the 3D reality, but know that there's more, and have this great connection to both themselves and the divine in a way that, you know, I never thought possible. And it's something that, you know, somebody who is starting to dabble in that or is curious of it would get a lot from, because they can see, you know, there's all these different levels. It doesn't matter where you're at, it's the right spot for you.
I love that, because what you are doing is well, at least what I perceive is you're a paradigm breaker. You're breaking down the paradigm. Even someone like me who is, I don't know if I would call myself ultra spiritual, but it's like I got the crystals. Trust me, I'm surrounded by them right now. I've got, you know, my meditations that I do. I talk to who, you know, my spirit team. I've got a team in spirit, but I believe everyone does too, by the way. But I can remember that what kept me from my own destiny, and I felt it at a very young age, was the feeling of gatekeeper or paradigm. Like you said, it's like, even when it's your divine path, something can stop you when you have these preconceived ideas around it. And, you know, having fully leaned in and being in it, like being surrounded by it now, I realized, like, first of all, you're so right. We are all one. And source itself is a multi-dimensional. So everything that does exist exists because of source, right? So who's to say that someone who is, you know, more focused on business or wants to deal with the practical can't also be uber spiritual in their own way? They're going to express it differently because they're a beautiful fractal of the bigger, you know, source energy. So that's what we're here to be. It's so interesting that this paradigm we come from has been so fixated on putting people in boxes, and they still are. It's nuts now. It's getting to this extreme level of trying to, crush you down to a little identity that you
Yeah.
have to stay inside in order to be anything. So if you're a businesswoman, you're the power businesswoman with your giant mug of coffee and your briefcase and your glasses and, no. And if you're a mom, then you're like this, amazing octopus who can do 50,000 things at one time and just absolutely loves it. Right. And if you're a
Yeah.
spiritual person, then, you're trying to like levitate while you meditate and all of these things that they're trying to fool us into thinking that unless you fit in this box, you're not in the club.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
try and fool us into believing it. That's exactly what it is. And that was, I felt like I wasn't in the Mothers Club because it didn't come naturally to me. My mother is one of the most beautiful humans to have walked this earth. I don't think I've ever heard her say a bad word about another person. She always looks for the good in people, and she'll always say, "Oh, Bridgie, don't say that. If I do say something that is a true fact about somebody, she'll try and find something good in that person." And it's something that I thought I would be, I would be as good a mother as she was, and just assumed that that's what would happen. Didn't know that I would have to learn how to be a parent. Didn't know that it didn't have to be the way that I had shaped it to be. And because of society telling me this is what mothers do, and if they're a working mother, this is what they do. Their child goes to daycare from the time they start work till the time they finish work, and sometimes that's not until 7 p.m. at night. And I felt awful doing things like that, and it was just something that I never expected, and it was a really very rude shock to my system. And I lived like that for 10 years because of what others told me I should and should not do. And that's really sad to have, lived like that and pretended for so long to be something that I wasn't. And it was an awakening for me to come out the other side of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I hear, and I can so resonate with, and I know so many, I think we all get sucked into this, is that trap of comparison, right? Which also is a self-limiting concept because, and I think humans are innocent when they do it, because how do we learn? We mimic.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a intuitive, like primal learning style, is to mimic what we see. And yet at some point that then becomes what you have to be.
And if you're mimicking something that was during a trauma phase, you could be mimicking the wrong thing too. I do think that a lot of it is more just ingrained in the connection to the divine. Because if you think about when a baby goes to crawl, nobody else in the household crawls. So
True.
how did they know they had to crawl? And, if their legs aren't strong enough, they do a bum shuffle or some version of crawling that often people will make fun of. But if you were to get that child assessed by a physician and they said, well, their bone structure isn't strong enough to actually hold their hips up to have their knees underneath them yet, so that's why they bum shuffle, I'm sure that would be the outcome. And they just intuitively know. They know that if they want to get from point A to B, this is how they do it. And nobody else shows them how to do that. And it's something that I often go back to that with when people start to write, is that, like, because people say they can't write, and I go, you can talk, you can write. And when people come to me and their second language is English, I love those people because they are so passionate about sharing their story and confused as to whether they've used the right English words to portray their message or their story the right way. And I say, you will know intuitively if you've used the right thing. And if you haven't, you will ask the question on those specific sentences or those words. And they go, how do you know? And I said, because I just do. I just know that's how it's going to play out for you. And it is always the case. They always come back and they go, you were right. It's, this sentence I just cannot get right. This is what I'm trying to say in about 50 words in one sentence. and then we come up with what they need to say. And it's a beautiful process to go through, to watch people tap back into their intuition. And the same thing when you start to discover your own spirituality and the divine connection that you have, is you're just tapping back into yourself and allowing that connection to happen, because you had it when you were a child.
Yeah.
Because you did the bum shuffle, or you did the crawling, or you did, you stood up and walked straight away. You didn't even do the crawling stage. I had a niece, one of my nieces, she didn't talk until she was, she spoke a little bit, but not a lot, until she was about 5. And everybody was so worried about it. But her mother was like, no, she's fine. She'll talk when she needs to. And, there was all these people saying, you need to take her to intervention and everything. And when she spoke, it was like she'd been speaking for years.
Yeah.
And she probably was, to herself or to her imaginary friend, or, in her room alone, whatever. But she had 2 older brothers and sisters who did all the talking for her. So she didn't need to talk. So she wasn't going to waste her energy.
Yeah.
And her mum intuitively knew that it would happen when it needed to happen. And when she was ready to go to school, she started talking completely fluently, as if she'd been talking to everybody all the time. And, as I said, she was probably doing it the whole time, just not in front of anyone.
Yeah. I love that story, because my own son, he didn't speak from, I think it was when children generally start making words, is like around, 9 months maybe, or 1. And he really didn't start speaking till he was 3. And same response from the outside world about you're not taking care of this. And I'm like, no, I can feel him. Like, we communicate all the time. And when he did start talking, he spoke his own language, but I could understand it. So I was just his interpreter all the time. But it was so funny because, our little family unit completely understood what he was talking about. And then we go out in public and he'd talk to people and they'd be like, and then look at me and I'd be like, this is what he just said. But yeah, I totally get that. And it's true. I mean, everyone's got their own timing and their own way of doing things. And it's interesting how we remember that in some areas of our lives. And then when it gets to be something that's outside our comfort zone, it's like we drop all of that knowledge, maybe because we're feeling so insecure in ourselves, because we're, again, outside that comfort zone and we're meeting our own fear.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we forget.
We do. And it seems to be, at least in my own experience, that every time you do it, no matter how many times you've overcome yourself or overcome the self-limiting belief, as soon as you find the next ceiling or the next, limit, you're like at that place again where I don't know what to do.
Or you start doing those comparisons again, like I did, am I worthy to sit at this table with these people?
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. Everybody is worthy. It doesn't matter if I was looking at what they had accomplished, and as opposed to what I have accomplished. And I actually went to a funeral recently of a friend, and she had an incredible life. And I knew a lot of what they said because we went on holidays with them once, and she told me a lot about her background and her story, and what she'd done before she got married. And it was amazing to listen to at her funeral. And we left the funeral and somebody said to me, I feel very underaccomplished after listening to what she had achieved. And I said, why would you say that? You have done so much in your lifetime. Oh, nothing like her. And I said, yeah, but it's not a competition. Life is not a competition. And I said, and she would be the most humble person. And that is why you wouldn't have known all those things about her. It was only because I was questioning her, because it was my husband's friend's wife and we didn't know each other very well, and we went to have coffee, and so I was questioning her, what did you do before you met him, and where did you grow up, and when did you move from newspaper to radio, and then when did you move on to TV? And so it was like I was interviewing her way back then and didn't know that she'd done all these things. And I was incredibly in awe of her, thinking how wonderful she'd done. But I didn't sit there and go, oh, I haven't done enough. I'm not as good as her. And that's what happened to this woman who attended the service. And I was like, no, darling, don't. And it's almost the same thing when you start to discover that you have this, like you said, everybody has a divine team. When you discover that you have that and the ability to connect with them and talk to them in your own way, in your own
Mm.
language, like
Yes.
our niece and your son did, it's like you take your life to another level. It's like you've got this whole team of people who've got your back to do whatever you want, and they're not physically here in 3D, but they're here.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's incredible to feel the power of that and to utilize it on the daily basis. And, you know, I'm not perfect. I stray from it, and I've been sick and haven't done a thing with connecting with them. And, you know, I got reminded by a beautiful human, and she said, Brigid, do my month's activation, where she takes you on this journey through guided meditation to connect within. And, you know, doing that as a daily practice during being ill has really helped me to feel a bit better every day. And it's something that I had forgotten that can help too. It doesn't have to just be the teas and the potions that the Western world has created. It's, you know, it's more than that you need for that whole body health, and that divine team is something that really does help you. And it's, you know, an incredible gift to discover for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely enjoy hanging out with my team. They're a part of my day, and I still do the same thing too. It's like I know they're there, and I know this is who I work with, and I know I've got all this support, and still I'll have those moments where I'll totally blank out and be like, I have to do this alone. And they're like, okay, oh, that's fine. Like, you want to do it like that? That's cool. Like, there's zero judgment from this team. And we
Mm.
always joke, and I call them 24-hour tech support. They're always on standby. They're just waiting to take your call. So you cannot, they won't call you because that crosses the free will, right? You
Yeah.
have free will, but they're just like waiting. They're just like, okay, this is my whole job, is just to listen for Brigid's call. So I'm just going to be here. And they constantly remind me that there is no question that's dumb. There's no ask that's too small or too big. It's like anything you want, that's what I'm here for. And they also know and love us for wanting to do it by ourselves, you know, because all of it's being cataloged. Like, that's the interesting thing about that I've learned about, like, source and the energy and the divine, is that information is the greatest currency of the universe. That's what the currency of the universe is. So everything we do, from our successes to our failures or our struggles or our wins, it's all fascinating to the universe. The universe is just like, yes. So if we want to, like, cry in the closet and eat a pint of ice cream, the universe is like, okay, mark that one down. Like, okay, good, interesting choice, you know. Versus, or if we want to step in and finally, like, lean into feeling vulnerable and asking for help from either spirit or people, they're also like interesting choice, you know. It's all good to them. So that's the beautiful thing about our journey, you know. As a human, we are often putting it in the right or wrong, good or bad boxes,
Yes.
but the universe doesn't see it that way at all. The
No.
universe is like, show me every choice you could make, because I find it absolutely enthralling.
And there's a movie that always comes to mind, and I cannot remember the name of it, but there's one girl, and she's got this whole, it's almost like each person that is in her mind is a personality. And I'm like, that's what a divine team is like. It's a
Is like
children's movie.
Inside Out. Inside Out.
Yeah. Inside Out. And that's almost the best visual that I can give of a divine team. It's like there's all these personalities sitting up there waiting to help you, and you know, they will each have their own input into what you do. And sometimes you don't know which one has told you, you know, the message that you receive. It's just they're there together to help you out. And like you said, I love that 24-hour tech support. That's what they are.
That's exactly what they are. And so we're always joking about it because, I asked them, I'm like, I remember asking, is there anything that you just wish I'd stop asking you? They're like, no, we'd rather you ask more, because that's the only time we can actively interact, except for moments where, let's say, your soul contract says that you're going to pass at age 93 or something like that, but you cross into the road and there's a semi truck coming, right? And its brakes go out, but you need to be there. Well, then they have that immediate intervention where they can, something comes in, some person grabs you by the arm, pulls you backwards, or something happens where it's like a miracle saved you. And there's so many stories of that. I love those types of stories where the miracle kicks in. But
Yeah.
spare those moments where something allows them to cross the path where they can come over and intercede. Most of the time they can't. So they're literally they're just waiting. So they're like, ask as much as you want. So it's like, is this a good crystal to buy? They'll be like, yeah, that one's better, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
And anyway, so, well, let's go back to, you can tell I love that conversation. But I want to talk to you about how you perceive leadership. So the words, yeah, how are you perceiving leadership? What does that look like to you? If someone said, write a book about leadership, what angle would you take?
That you do it as yourself. You don't try and, you be your complete self. You don't try and do it as somebody else or be like somebody else who has done it, a way that you thought was the right way. You do it in your own way. I think leadership is just showing up to allow other people the opportunity to change. And, you want to listen to everybody around you because you don't know where their messages are coming from and who might have the gold in what you're looking for. So it's something that it can be in every situation. It's like as my boys grow up, I can see them stepping into leadership, and it might be just leadership of their own life. It might be leadership in their friend group. And it's a beautiful thing to witness, because you can see that they sometimes find it a little hard, but they do it anyway. And it's it's a beautiful thing to witness, because they're doing it as themselves. They're completely, every mother will tell you, you've raised your children exactly the same. How are they so different? I look at my siblings and, 4 of us were raised in a family unit together, and we are all so, so different. And it's incredible to think about that, and that each one of us has stepped into our own leadership in our own way, because we've really become who we are, and we're not trying to be something that we're not. And I think that that's the best thing about it. Going back to witnessing the women in the current book and seeing them step up to leadership, there's been things like they've organised a launch day party on Zoom, and they've organised interviews with one another, and one of them's done lots of graphics, and it's like, this is amazing interaction with each other without me having to even be present. And that's stepping up to leadership in a time of need, because the actual person who should be leading the project is not there, physically couldn't have been there. And it's beautiful to witness that. And I think that that's because I have this leadership where I allow others to shine. And I think that's really important too. And I think that's why I am so successful in business, is I allow other people to shine what they have to offer and what they can bring to the table. And I'm really grateful when they bring it, because it allows whatever the business is that you're working in or working on to be better, and to allow other people to be better. And it's a great way to live in leadership, is to allow other people to outshine you.
I love that. And that is so, like, if we could just put everything about the summit encapsulate it into a sentence, it would be New Earth leadership is about allowing other people to shine. Absolutely. Because that's really what you know, the higher we
Yeah.
go in frequency, collaboration is the key word, which you just said you experienced. You got to watch, you know, as the one who's like leading the project, but having to step back. All these people came in and they were like, we got you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful to, you know, I'm so grateful, but at the same time, it's brilliant for them, you know, to be able to show others what they're capable of too. And, you know, in the future, they might get, their business might expand because of them doing this thing that is totally unrelated to their business, but it will draw people to them like bees to honey. And it's something that, you know, I love watching that happen with, even in the office I used to work in, there was a young girl there that she'd had a rough upbringing, and, you know, put her through traineeship and mentored her. And she rang me about 3 years after she left me and she said, can I put you down as a reference? I'm going for a managerial position within the Department of Health. And I was like, oh my God, that is so awesome. Like, it was like, you know, watching this little flower bloom, and all of a sudden she's become the star of the bouquet. And it was just a beautiful thing to hear from her. And then she got the job, which was, you know, incredible to think that she went from this young person that thought that she wasn't worthy of having a job, let alone be a manager, 5 years before, to becoming a manager in a health industry, which is where she wanted to work. And yeah, it was a beautiful thing to witness. So yeah, it's nice to let other people shine and show their light. And it's working from this space again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's what's beautiful about it is that the higher we go in consciousness, and in the spiritual industry, we're talking about moving into fourth density, which is living from the heart chakra. So it's about the open heart, and we're connecting through people where we are really remembering that we are connected. It's no longer this airy fairy feeling from a previous level of consciousness where it's like, oh yeah, we're all one. No, we're like, no, we are one. We get it now. And so we work for each other's good, because
Yes.
when you win, I also win. And when you suffer, I also suffer. So everybody's working to the betterment of other people, because that's how we know it feels good. I mean, this is where we really get keyed into the collective energetic. And we really see, like, unless every single person is feeling taken care of, that's the only way we can feel like we're thriving.
Yeah.
And so everything becomes about, how do I help you? How do we address this? How do we work together to create the system that supports all of us, versus, you know, how can I take advantage of this situation? So
Yeah.
I love that you're already experiencing that dynamic, because I know we are. I know that we get to tap into these higher waves of energy, and it's not about will we get to experience it. We do. Now it's just about holding that frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that that's happening for you. That's just such a beautiful example.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I love, you said there, there was a line you used there and I said, yes, I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, when people watch the replay, when I say yes to Teresa's
Pay
comment,
attention to that moment.
pay attention to that moment. It is really good. Teresa, I think that also it's something that, going back to what I was talking about before, I see myself as an ordinary, everyday woman. I don't see myself as something special. And I think that when people are exploring their spirituality, they often think, I'm not the right type of person to. And there's so many variations of people. You know, Oprah is very spiritual. If you are to dive into, if you actually Googled Oprah spirituality, you will see a ton of stuff on it. But normal media will not show that, because to them it's a bit woo-woo. I have one of my best friends who says, oh, I won't read your intuitive books because they're a bit too woo-woo for me, but I'll read the other ones. And I'm like, honey, you need to read them. Like, you'll see. And you know how normal I am. Like,
Right.
it's not woo-woo. And she just recently signed up to a mini course that one of my authors is actually running. And I said to her, it's a bit woo-woo. I said, but you're going to love it. And she did. And I'm really pleased that she's opening herself up to this opportunity. But it's, want people to understand that when we talk about the new earth and divine intervention and our divine teams and stuff, that it doesn't make us crazy or weird or different. It's just, we're here to show you what's possible and how you can live from this different space, and life just gets better rather than as challenging as it is without them, without utilizing them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that my team loves to say is, every perspective is valid. They're very much, they're always talking to me about, like, there's going to be, they said, this is the metaphor they give me, and it really helps me understand it. They said, imagine a room and you're standing in the center, and that's your perception point, is the center of this room. So you look around and the corners feel a certain distance from you and the walls. And so, and the way you're viewing it looks a certain way. And there's going to be people standing right next to you who hold a very similar view. So when you speak about the room, they'll be like, yes, I understand this. Yes, that's exactly, or very similar to what I see. And then also populating the room at the far corners, at the walls, filling this room are other people who are going to have a very different perception of the exact same space than you. And they said, whose perception is right? They asked me that question. I said, I don't know. And they're like, everyone. Because it's where you're standing in the room that's going to influence how you're experiencing it. So, it's funny because we're talking about this and, like, nothing that we're saying feels woo-woo to me. Like, it hasn't pushed my extreme at all. But I do listen to people who push my extreme, and I'm like, it's almost like they're speaking a different language. So all I know is that but the feeling is there and it's resonating. Like, I know something about this makes sense to me, even if I don't fully understand the perception it's coming from. I just know they're standing in a different part of the room. And then there's also people who I love on this planet who don't see any value in what I hold very dear, right? They're just in a different part of this space. And my team is like, you don't need to reject any of it. Some of it's resonant for you because it matches your perception, and some of it is going to feel very foreign. And they said,
it depends where each person is on their journey of life as to what level they're open to accept at that time too, and what level they're ready to step into. So I think that I agree with you. There are people that talk, and I have one friend in particular who completely lives in 5D, and sometimes I think that she is off this planet, and she says, I feel like I am. I actually feel like I am. And I can't imagine ever being there, but I'm not saying I won't.
Well, I love what you're doing, because what they suggested to me is exactly what you're allowing. And they said, the goal of the game is not to be right. The goal of the game is to ask how many people, what do you see? What do you see? From where you're standing, what do you see? Right. And some of it's going to resonate for you. Some of it's going to blow your mind open. Some of it you're going to be like, okay, no, like internally, like a no. But it's not about trying to make your perception right. It's really about trying to see as much of the picture as you can, because we're all holding a sacred piece of that puzzle. Each one of us has something valid about the bigger picture that we're seeing. So I love that, because you're literally doing the journey that they're like, Therese, this is the journey. Like, go find all the puzzle pieces, like see as many as you can before you leave.
Yeah. I love that too.
I love that. So before we wrap up, I love asking people this question because it's a big one and maybe it feels a little general, but I think that it's that sort of like legacy question for you. So if you could teach the world just one concept, what would it be?
To meditate.
To meditate.
Yeah.
All right. And why?
Meditation was the turning point for me. I felt so lost. And that's when everything started to open up for me, when I started to meditate. And I did it even though I had these preconceived ideas of who meditates. And I did it even though I had these challenges of not being able to not think. And I still often do guided meditations when I'm overthinking lots of things, rather than just my own mindful meditations. And it's it's a game changer for me, and I think that it could be a game changer for a lot of people. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it really gives you, it gives you the ability to hear your own inner voice. And it isn't until we stop and slow down and give ourselves the space that that voice can get louder. So I'm right there with you. It's such a powerful tool.
I have to say, I love it when the response to, after people talk to me about being in a book or writing their own book with me, I'll go meditate on it and I'll come back to you. And I'm like, yes, now I know she's coming to me.
So that's the key phrase. That's the, like, I know you'll be back for
Yeah, absolutely. Because, that they're the people that I call into my world. So it's, they're the ones that I ask my divine team to guide to me, show them my posts, show them my emails, show them this particular book. And it's great. And they say, I don't even know how I found you, is the comment too. I love that, because you've just put it out and the intention is there for who it's meant to reach.
Team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so fantastic. So I want to talk about this amazing free gift that you're sharing with the audience today. So you're going to share your intuitive storytelling guide with us. Can you please tell us more about that?
So every time I write, I do a process where I take people, or I take all my authors through this process too. It's something that it just clears your mind and allows you to write from your heart space and not your head space. And as I said before, I sit down to write XYZ and ABC comes out and I go, well, where did that come from? But it's bloody good.
Love it.
And, that's part of the divine team coming into the play. And it's something that setting up your space, allowing yourself to be grounded, the no distractions. And it's really simple process and anybody can do it. And even just for writing emails or social media posts is really useful. And even for journaling at a deeper level, it can help as well. Because storytelling really does connect us as human beings, and allowing yourself to tell your stories from your heart space will allow you to tell stories that you'd forgotten or buried. And that's what I found going through this journey. Like people say everybody's got at least one book in them. I think people have got thousands of books in them, because there's so many. I mean, the chapters I write could be whole books, and it's this encapsulating a story through intuitive storytelling process is a great way to get to that deeper level and allow yourself to share very vulnerably, but still feel confident in what you're putting out there. And it's a beautiful way to write. So I'm glad to gift that to people, because I love more people having the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that that link is below the video so that you can click right on it and grab that free gift. I know I'm going to, because anything that would help make writing more fun or easier or more intuitive, it's like, sign me up for that. Also, you had mentioned that there's a new book coming out. What's the title of that?
I actually have 3 coming out.
Oh, 3. Oh my God.
My team gives me my book names. I don't name the books. There's a 4th intuitive book, which is called Intuitive Feeling Her Truth. And that's obviously going into when women stepped right into their intuition and felt the power of it. The Calling, which is for women who are living in their passion and actually know that they were called to do this on this planet. And then there's Bully, which is how bullying shaped you as a person. And the bully one, is I was telling a childhood friend who reconnected with me in January, and we haven't spoken in over 15 years. And she said, what books? I've been following your journey. I've read all of your books that you've published and you've written in, and I can't believe that, you know, I'm talking to you now and we haven't spoken for so many years. And I said, oh, I'm doing one called Bully. And she said, is that because of those XYZ girls at school? And I went, no. And she went, Brigid, they bullied you so much. And I went, I had no idea, Kylie. Like, I was just blasé to her. And she said, well, I did protect you a lot from it. And, you know, but then she reminded me of a scenario and I went, oh my gosh. And, you know, I left school crying and I went to her house and it was just this whole remembrance. And I was like, that's why they've given me the book, because I need to heal that wound. And
Right.
I need to write in that book. I don't write in all of the books I publish, but some of them I do. And, that's why they've given me that book. And it's a beautiful thing when I'm gifted these titles and the tagline or the description, and I share them with people and they go, oh my gosh, that's going to be so good, or I want to write in that. It's just, it makes my heart expand. So yeah, I have the 3 of them coming out soon, to being open for applications. And I don't take everybody who applies for the books. You know, some people aren't ready to write, or you know, they are trying to use it for the wrong reason. Yeah, so I do have an application process for all of the books and they will be available soon.
That's so exciting. And where can we find them when they are available, or where can we find the other books that are available now?
Everything is on brigidholder.com.
Fantastic. So we'll make sure that you have that link as well so that you can go check out the books, the beautiful and amazing books that Brigid has already produced. And as you can tell, there's even more coming. So who knows, maybe you might be in one of her next books in the future, especially if you're using this amazing tool that she's giving you today. Brigid, thank you so much for coming on to the show and giving us your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Therese. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. And thank you to those who are watching. I hope that this has inspired you. There's so much here about stepping in to the power of your own story and letting it help light the way of your own divine path. So enjoy the gift that Brigid's bringing you. Check out her website, brigidholder.com. Read the books, and I look forward to seeing you at the next New Earth Leadership Summit episode. Until then, stay magical.